my name is Kelly, and this is kind of just where I'm going to be posting things that I'm into. Right now, that is going to be painting, but later on, that could definitely change. I just wanted to have a place to kind of post things that I'm trying out. I'm probably going to be terrible at a lot of stuff, but I might be less bad at other things. But if that sounds interesting to you, please feel free to follow along. And if you have any tips, please send them my way so I don't look like a complete idiot. But yeah, thanks for watching my first video, and I hope you enjoy. So for this first painting, I decided I want to go with a character from one of my favorite animes, Gon from Hunter x Hunter. First, I always start out my paintings with doing a base coat. I just always have done this. I haven't really tried doing it without the base coat, but I think it actually helps the paint stay on a little smoother and not be as chunky and everything. At least I haven't had any problems with them. So that's what I'm doing, and we can fast forward through this part. Also, as I was painting, I was blissfully unaware that my phone had moved, and I had dropped my phone immediately face first onto my painting. I had some unsavory words to say about that, but thought that was interesting. Back to the painting the base coat. I'll fast forward through this so you don't have to sit there for 2 hours watching me paint black onto a canvas. And here I am, finished up with the first layer of paint on the canvas. Looking pretty snazzy. So as you can see, it's been a little while. I let the paint dry and everything, but we are going to go back in with a second coating of the black. I did this just because it looked a little streaky and there were like some grainy spots that weren't completely covered, so I like to go in with that second layer of paint to get that nice little even coat and to make that black really pop. So after getting that top coat on, you can see me lifting up the sides of the painting. You can't really see it too well, but I am starting to paint the actual sides of the painting. I used to actually not do this until I went on a date with a girl and she saw some of the paintings that I had and none of them had that little like outline and was like, what are you doing? Like, it would look so much better with this. And since then I just started doing it because it actually does look better. I'm also not dating that girl anymore. I'm seeing a very another lovely girl, but thanks for the tip. Yeah. So I learned that you should probably not paint on your couch because you will get paint literally all over the couch. I don't really care too much about my couch. I love my couch. It's like my comfy place, but yeah, if you're wondering, just, common sense, put something down under your painting if you're gonna paint, and don't be like me. And here we are finishing up the last of the sides of the painting. Looking pretty good. Shout out to that girl that I went on the date with. It was terrible, but at least I got one thing out of it. So now we are going to move on to the stencil part. This part I always suck at. I just try and do a rough sketch of what I'm doing, like literally squint your eyes and the shapes you see. That's exactly what I'm trying to do here. And here is how we are looking towards the end of stencil number 1. I'm not too shabby, it's just kind of like a rough outline of what I'm trying to do. Next up is the second stencil. So I went through and did this twice just because it's on a black background. I wanted to make sure that I could actually see where I needed to be painting, and it kind of gives me more definition into the kind of like shape that I'm needing for what I want to paint. So it kind of just gives that bold outline just so I don't get lost in the background. And right here I just decided to add in a few little details that I ended up not even using, but it's also good if you do want to add like details. At least I've done it with my other paintings like this. You can add those like, I guess, smaller details. It makes it harder when you're trying to fill in the space and kind of paint around all those details, but yeah, I didn't even end up using it, so it didn't really matter for this, I guess. So this is kind of what it's ended up looking like. I'm just finishing like the last little details, which really don't matter since you're gonna paint over it anyways, but yeah, I just kind of like to have it squared away on what my vision is gonna be. And I know you're thinking it looks good now, but just wait, it's gonna get so much worse. Alrighty, now it's time to get to the fun part. You get to start painting. So for this next layer of paint, I decided to go with something that's a little lighter than the background. I didn't want to do something that's super contrasting just because I'm going to be adding in those colors later. But yeah, this is basically just me doing the outline first. I like to go ahead and do the outlines of any kind of shape that I'm going to be doing because it gives me a little more buffer room with my paintbrushes to not go outside the lines and kind of keep the shape looking like the shape that it needs to be. So that's all I'm doing here, and we can go ahead and fast forward so you can see the next part. Okay, and here we go. We've got the final layer of paint down for that basic outline filled in shape that we're going for the character that we're going to be using. And didn't look too shabby, so we're going to let that dry and then pop over to the next portion. Now we are going to be adding in a little bit of color. So for this part, this one was a little tricky. I always have trouble kind of doing gradients, but this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to do like an oval gradient around the figure that'll make that silhouette pop, which is what we really wanted to do. So here I am just going to be adding in basically 3 different colors. I did white, yellow, and a little bit of a darker yellow mixed with orange, and kind of mixed all those together and placed them in an oval shape behind the silhouette. So we're trying to make the light come from behind, and that's going to be our source, and that's what we're going to be painting from. So here we are finishing up the light source for our painting. As you can see, it kind of just makes that silhouette pop. That's what we're really going for, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, wow, this looks amazing, this looks great, oh my gosh, it's so sexy. Just wait. It's all gonna go downhill. It's gonna go downhill, and you're gonna see it, and you'll be like, oh, never mind, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's a learning process. That's what we're here for. So yeah, let's skip to the next part. So this next part, I don't even know why I decided to do it. I just, on a whim, was like, you know what, I want this to look lighter. So I decided to go back in and repaint the silhouette with a lighter paint. It looked good already. I shouldn't have touched it. Yes, I know. That's my bad. So you can basically just skip this part because this is utter nonsense and ridiculous. But anyways, I thought I'd show you how terrible it looks afterwards. But that's what this is. Me just going in and painting that a lighter shade. And this is what it's looking like with our new ugly cement color. I don't even want to talk about this part anymore. We're just going to skip to the next part. So for this part, this is me just painting a shadow on top of the ugly figure that I painted over with that stupid gray color. But I just used a lot of water mixed with a little bit of acrylic black paint, just so I could get that silhouette to pop more with that light source behind it, because we lost that, as you can see. So we're just adding a little bit of darkness to that. So here you can see it being finished up with that shadow. It's not super prominent because it's so watered down, but I didn't want to go back in and change the whole color of it again because it just, I don't know. I thought it would make it look chunky and I didn't want that. So I just added that thin little layer onto the painting, and this is how it turned out. Alrighty, for this next part, we are going to add in some highlights for the body. This, I'm just taking a plain white and I mixed like literally the smallest amount of yellow to get like a yellow tinged white. But I'm using that and I'm just basically going around and painting the outline of the figure. I don't want to do like a super thick line, which I'm really terrible at controlling. Hopefully eventually my brush handling skills will get better, but for now we're just working with what we got. But that's all I'm doing here. I'm just going around the whole silhouette and I am painting a very thin line around it to give the body a little highlight. So here I am going in with a second highlight for the body because I realized I goofed and messed up on the first highlight. It ended up being a little too bold for what I wanted, which it pissed me off more than it should have. But you know, we live and we learn. That's all a part of the process. It might turn out like crap now, but you know, next time I got a handle on it. So basically I'm just going in here doing the same thing, except before the paint dries, I'm taking my finger and I'm kind of smudging it and like dragging a little bit with just my fingertip. I wanted to do it to where it kind of went with the anatomy of the body. So the way I'm smudging it is I'm just taking my finger and wherever the line is, let's say it's on the shoulder or something, I'm going to drag it like down where the shoulder muscle would be. Or if it's on like the leg or something, I'm going to go like down with the leg muscles and stuff like that. So that's all I'm doing right here. Nothing too fancy. Should have done it the first time, but it's a learning process. We got this. Alright, and here it is, me finishing up with the highlights. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, but I wish I would have done it right the first time. So, learn from my mistakes, don't do what I did, and get it right the first time. Moral of the story, don't listen to me until later in my videos, when I've learned from my mistakes. But this is what it's looking like right now, and yeah, next we get to do some more fun stuff with color. For this next part, I thought it would be cool to have like another center glow, except on the front part coming out of the character. So I wanted to do like a sort of like bloody kind of type vibe to it. Anyways, so I basically just went in here and did another gradient, but this time with it actually having the center out in front. I took a darker red and kind of moved into a lighter red as I went up in the gradient or like out in the gradient, and just blended it multiple times together just to get it to where it kind of looked like it was transitioning evenly between the colors. But that's all I'm doing right here. Nothing super crazy. And this is what we're looking like finishing up that gradient. I know it's kind of hard to see with the lighting. Again, I apologize. I am still new to this and I'm still learning, but this is what we're looking like with that final gradient on the front with the center. Now we get to do my personal favorite part of this whole painting is these little cracks that are coming out of the center. So I basically just took the darker red that I used from the background or the very center of that gradient we did before, and just started like very delicately trying to keep that thin line and doing like these little crack kind of things. I know I'm saying crack a lot, but that's what I'm doing, okay? And this is what we're looking like with those cracks all finished up. I know it's hard to tell, but it looks fantastic. At least the cracks do. If you don't pay attention to the highlights and everything else that makes this painting terrible, it's looking pretty good. I'd say we're doing alright. Now for this next part, I wanted to add a little more something that would make those cracks pop, just because they're kind of hard to see. They blend in a little bit to that red gradient that we have in the center. So I just took a little bit of white paint that I had and just barely outlined parts of the cracks that we just painted. It doesn't have to like cover the full thing. At least I didn't do that. Who knows? Maybe it'd look better like that. But I wanted to go ahead and just do like tiny little random highlights on it. So I just took my brush and I barely did little like eensy teensy weensy lines on the cracks until I thought it looked decent. And this is what we're looking like with those highlighted cracks all done. Not too shabby. For this next part, I fudged up a little bit. I will admit, I messed up. I wanted to make some muscle definition so you could see it a little bit. So I ended up doing the base like gray that we have on our silhouette right now, and I thinned it out a lot with water. And I tried doing it to where I painted it like little lines on each side, like where I wanted the like chest muscles and abs and biceps and stuff to be. But that didn't turn out so well. So I ended up switching over to the smudge technique that we did earlier with that white highlight, and that worked a lot better. So for your reference, if you're doing this, go with the smudge technique. Always safest bet. At least that's what I'm learning so far. This is me finishing up on the final portion of the muscle definition. You know, we messed up, we learned, that's what matters, and now we're moving on. For this last portion, just to kind of finish up the painting, I felt like it was missing something, and I wanted to sort of embody the scene that this pose and character is from. So if you've seen the anime, you know this guy's trying to kill literally everyone. I wanted to add like a little red smokiness hue, I guess, like an aura, but I basically just went in there with a darker red that I mixed, just like a normal base red with a teeny weeny bit of black in it. So mixed that up and then threw that on the canvas, and then did the same finger smudge technique. Also, you gotta be really careful with doing this stupid smudge technique, because I swear I got paint literally everywhere when I was doing this, but that's besides the point. This is what I'm doing to add that final little oomph to my painting. And here we are, finally finished with the last part of this painting. I think the smoky red hue kind of helped us redeem ourselves, helped me redeem myself in this whole learning process. So I think it looks decent. And yeah, I just want to thank you for watching, just taking the time to check out my video. This is my first one that I'm uploading, so I'm still new to this process. But yeah, if you enjoyed, watching me paint and listening to my stupid commentary, then, follow along, come on back, and I will be posting more. Thanks.
Fuck! And spit on that thing!